Okay, what's up YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have another video on the Abandoned Warship series. Today I'm going to be doing two separate vessels but in the same area, the HMVS Cerberus and the HMQS Gayundah. So first, let's start off with the Cerberus. The Cerberus is a breastwork monitor type warship that was built for the early form of the Australian Navy or the Royal Australian Navy. The ship is a breastwork monitor, which is a type of ironclad warship very similar to the USS Monitor, which was designed by John Erickson. It was pretty much like the Monitor, except, this ship had two turrets and was much heavier and was more designed as an ocean-going monitor, Whereas the original USS Monitor was an ocean-going monitor, but it had some buoyancy problems, or it had some problems when it came to dealing with, weather at sea or high waves and whatnot. So the Cerberus class was pretty much the British, upgrade from the Monitor type warships being used in the US. Now there were two Cerberus class monitors, the HMS Magdala and the HMVS Cerberus. The Magdala was later became the flagship or one of these ships in the British Indian Navy, while the Cerberus became one of the most powerful warships in the Australian Navy. Now, the Cerberus was built in the year 1867 and was launched in the year 1870. And the Cerberus served the Royal Australian Navy from 1871 until 1926. Now, the ship had a displacement of 3,340 long tons, or 3,390 tons, American tons. The ship had a speed of 9.75 knots, or 11.22 miles per hour, or 18.6 kilometers per hour for all you guys who live in Europe. The ships had a crew of 97. The most important thing was the ship's armament. Now keep in mind, this is a double turreted monitor. So the ship's main armament was two 10-inch rifled muzzle loading guns. These guns weighed 18 tons apiece. The ship also had two secondary armament of two single 12-pounder bronze howitzers. I almost said brown howitzers, but two 12-inch bronze howitzers. She also had four-barreled 1-inch Nordenfelt crank-powered machine guns. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the Nordenfelt. It's the machine gun that looks very similar to a piano. It's a crank-powered machine gun. These things were chambered for a 1-inch caliber round, very similar to a 50 caliber cartridge, but much larger. And it was the model 1883 Nordenfelt machine gun. And she also had two single 6-pounder QF guns and also two Nordenfelt Maxim 14-pounder quick firing guns of the model 1897 year, or the model 1897 Nordenfelt Maxim 14-pounder QF guns. The ship's armor thickness was between 6 and 8 inches, or 150 to 200 millimeters. That was the ship's belt armor, but she also had a turret armor that went all the way up to 250 50 millimeters. Goddamn, stuttering. So the HMVS Cerberus pretty much served from 1871 until 1926. Now, keep in mind, the Cerberus was pretty much, I guess you could say this ship was, you could say this ship was the first battleship in Australia's Navy, Ironclad warships were pretty much the battleships of their day in the years before the pre-dreadnought and later dreadnought era of turbine-powered battleships, So the HMVS Cerberus was decommissioned on the 2nd of September 1926, and she was later scuttled, as in purposely sunk. She was scuttled, and Half Moon Bay. Now, I don't live in Australia, but I have heard of Half Moon Bay. It's a pretty scenic site, especially some of the images I've seen of it. So if you go to Half Moon Bay, you can literally see the HMVS Cerberus sitting in the shallows. Now the ship is slowly sinking into the seabed. I mean, this is a heavy breastwork monitor. These things are made out of heavy iron. So as time passes, this vessel is slowly sinking into the sand, basically. You know, and it's pretty common for most warships that are of a heavier weight. I'm pretty sure it's very similar to the USS Arizona. You know, the USS Arizona is a large battleship that was destroyed during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, Pearl Harbor is pretty shallow, but the entire hull of the Arizona has slowly sunken into the mud as the decades have gone by. So the same thing is happening to the Cerberus. Doesn't matter how big it is, eventually it's going to sink beneath the waves at some point. So the Cerberus is badly deteriorated. It is slowly sinking into the mud, but in terms of the areas above the water, the corrosion is very visible. I mean, the thing is rusted beyond belief. Now, many organizations have plans to raise the Cerberus, but as of 2018, this vessel is still abandoned. So I hope they do raise the ship. You know, I mean, this is one of the last Monitor warships on Earth. There's not many Monitor warships that have survived. I'll say that's probably about 10 literal Monitor type warships. I mean, USS Monitor style warships, you know, John Erickson type warships, those types. You know, there are other ironclad ships that have survived, but in terms of Monitors, yeah, there's not that many. And in terms of the ones that have survived, I'll say only about half of those, only about 5 of those Monitors are 100% together, or at least 70% complete or intact. Many of the Monitor warships that have survived have largely survived in pieces or had to be salvaged from the various rivers/oceans in which they sunk. For example, the USS Monitor is slowly being salvaged, and you also have Confederate Monitors that have been salvaged over the years, like the CSS Jackson. So if Australia was to raise the HMVS Cerberus, you would have, I guess, one of the first or one of the last British/Victorian era Monitors to be preserved intact, you know, because the only thing that's missing from the Cerberus is some of the ship's superstructure. Other than that, the ship is largely intact. All of its turrets are still there. Most of its secondary armament has been removed, most of the smaller guns. And its Northern Felt machine guns have been salvaged a long time ago. But other than that, the Cerberus is largely intact. So what the Cerberus being, I guess, glanced over, let's move on to the next warship, which is the HMQS Gayundah, which was a ironclad gunboat from the 1880s. Let me end it there. Okay, now the next vessel on the list is the HMQS Gayundah. The HMQS Gayundah, later renamed the HMAS Gayundah, was a flat iron gunboat built for the Queen Islands Marine Defence Force, which was later renamed the Royal Australian Navy. The HMQS Gayundah was built in the year 1884, and she was a Armstrong type B1 type flat iron gunboat or ironclad gunboat. The ship had a displacement of 360 tons and had a max speed of 10.5 knots or 19.4 kilometers per hour or 12.1 miles per hour. The ship had a crew of 55 men, and the ship's main armament was one 8-inch 203.2 millimeter naval gun, one 6-inch 152.4 millimeter secondary naval gun, two 1.5-inch Northern Felt crank power machine guns, and two Maxim model 1880 heavy machine guns. The ship served the Royal Australian Navy, or the Queen's Island Defence Force, from the years 1884 until 1921, where she was decommissioned and later converted into a storage hulk / crane ship. The HMQS Gayundah served in this role from 1921 until 1958, where she was scuttled as a breakwater. Now, fast forward till the 21st century, the HMQS Gayundah is badly deteriorated. I mean, the ship is basically nothing but a keel, with part of the ship's bow and the very tip of the ship's stern still remaining. Now, I don't know if the ship's propellers have survived, but I highly doubt it. They were probably looted a long time ago. Today, the Gayundah is badly deteriorated when compared to the state of the HMVS Cerberus. Now, the Cerberus is pretty salvageable. I mean, it's sitting in the shallows. It's largely intact. I mean, some of the superstructure has been removed, but other than the superstructure, the missing superstructure components, the ship's hull, turrets, and even her armaments, or with the exception of machine guns, obviously, all of those are still intact. The Gayundah, on the other hand, is gone. She is literally a lost cause. I also read that there was a landing craft that was scuttled behind the Gayundah, but just like the Gayundah itself, the landing craft, the World War II vintage landing craft, was pretty much destroyed by time, corrosion, and the surf. You know, the Gayundah and that landing craft have been pounded by the harsh environment since 1958. So, you know, this is like nearly 70 years of nonstop environmental erosion of this ironclad gunboat and its World War II vintage landing craft companion, I guess. So yeah, Gayundah is basically gone, but the HMVS Cerberus is still salvageable. So I believe that the Australian government or the Australian Navy should probably raise the Cerberus. The Cerberus is pretty much the first Australian battleship. I mean, let's be real, the breastwork monitors or monitor warships were during that time, the monitor type warship was basically a battleship in its own, or a battleship of its day, before the era of the pre-dreadnought battleships and the dreadnought battleships of the 1880s, and later the dreadnought battleship, the turbine powered battleships of 1906 onward. So yeah, the Cerberus should be salvaged, but I don't know. Now, there have been various groups over the last, I'll say 30 or probably 40 years that have been trying to raise and preserve the Cerberus, but so far they have had no real luck. It is 2018 at the time of this video, and the Cerberus is still slowly sinking into the seabed of Half Moon Bay. So what do you all think of this video? What do you all think should happen to the Cerberus or the Gayundah? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time, signing off.